And that's just an undeniable fact. Oliveira's title run was nothing short of magical. That's the best way I can describe it. So amazing to watch. I have a lot of friends who don't know anything about MMA, and they were in love with this dude. They loved watching him fight. They were heartbroken to see him lose to Islam. I saw grown men cry after that fight. And I'm not talking about tearing up. I'm talking about ugly wailing. Like the kind of wailing that, like, if your girl saw you do that, she would leave you. There's no way any straight man can do this and live a life afterwards. That's how bad it was. So amazing. June 10th, he has a huge fight against Beneil Dariush. That's really the main event. Let's be honest. Nobody could give a damn about Amanda Nunes. It's all about Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. Winner is getting a title shot. I know a lot of people really want to see him go at Islam again. I'd love to see him get one more shot at it. I think if he were to make some certain adjustments, he could make the fight interesting. That's for sure. I don't think he's going to win, though. I don't think he can. I think Islam is too well-rounded, too good of a striker. He'll be able to ward off any submission attempts Charles has. But I don't think any of this matters. I don't think Charles is going to get a shot at him again. I believe skill for skill, when comparing Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush, Beneil edges him out everywhere. As far as the grappling goes between these two, Beneil Dariush has better accolades. Let's take a look at Charles's biggest accomplishments when it comes to jiu-jitsu competition. He first place South American champion at purple belt, first place world champion at blue belt, first place at the Sao Paulo State Championship, then second place at purple belt for the CBJJE World Cup. Now, what is notable here is obviously Charles started his MMA career very early. He was in the UFC when he was 20 years old. So his biggest tournament accomplishments for jiu-jitsu ended at purple belt. Now, looking at Beneil Dariush's accolades, right off the bat, there is a lot more. World No-Gi champion at brown belt, World No-Gi champion at brown belt absolute, Pan American champion at the blue belt, world champion, second place at brown belt, purple belt, and blue belt, Pan American Championship, second place at brown belt and absolute, world champion, third place, world No-Gi champion, third place, Pan American champion, third place. Now, the one thing I want to pull away from this, all of this is in the IBJJF. Charles was in the CBJJE. IBJJF is way more prestigious. A lot more competitors would participate in a tournament like this. He has better accolades. Also, not to mention, purple belt worlds and brown belt worlds is a huge step up in competition. As far as IBJJF goes, brown belt is where it starts getting serious. Beneil at brown belt had an Abu Dhabi trials match against Kron Gracie. Now, when I say Kron Gracie, I'm sure a lot of you are picturing that one guy, that complete disgrace to the sport of mixed martial arts who just recently fought and had the most embarrassing performance of all time. But I'm not talking about him. Well, I am talking about him, actually, that exact guy. However, when it comes to jiu-jitsu and pure jiu-jitsu, sport jiu-jitsu, Kron Gracie is top of the food chain. ADCC champion, had an insane match against Gary Tone, and he's gone up against anybody. You don't get much better than him when it comes to pure jiu-jitsu, especially at the time of when they competed. They had a super back-and-forth match. I was convinced Beneil Dariush won while I was watching. He swept Kron, ended up on top, should have gotten 2 points for it. I don't know how they ended up giving it to Kron. I wish I did. But point made. And what was crazy, Beneil was a brown belt at the time, going up against Kron Gracie, the black belt. Pure insanity. Now, I will preface, it is difficult to judge them based on these accolades alone, purely because, like I said, Charles stopped competing jiu-jitsu, at least seriously, at purple belt. Beneil Dariush kept going. So, if Charles stuck with it, who knows? Maybe he could have very similar accolades, maybe he could have better accolades. But let's look at how they do it in the cage, how their grappling is in the octagon. The main difference between them in MMA is Beneil Dariush is much more textbook. Charles, on the other hand, is wild. He dives on submissions. He jumps at them. He will put himself in bad positions looking for certain kind of submissions. That's how confident he is in his submission game. This runs into problems for me. When you have two guys like this who are typically the way better submission artists in all of their fights, no matter who they're fighting, you kind of have to assume the submission threat is going to be canceled out. Just based on from watching their fights, I lean towards Charles being a little deadlier with the submissions. But I don't know if he's better enough to finish Dariush. That's the problem. So what does that mean? That means Charles might be on his back for a lot of this fight. And if you can't mount more offense than your opponent and you're the one on bottom, you're losing. Charles' wildness, it might fail him here. Now let's look at the striking, and this is where the gap in skill becomes evident. In both of Charles' fights with Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, Charles went at them. He went at them guns blazing, and people find them better than all these people on the ground. When he fought Islam, who was the way better striker, him putting all that pressure on him, it didn't work that well because he kept getting clipped, and when he went to his back from being rocked, he didn't have a rest. Islam jumped on a submission and finished it. Charles has good, clean, fundamental striking, but he lacks when it comes to defense. We all see it. He gets hit a lot. Beneil, his striking is very, very solid. He works with Rafael Cordero at King's MMA. You don't have much better Muay Thai teaching than that. His defense is on point. His offense is on point. He's so good at hitting guys with that straight left. And what shot do we always see Charles get hit by? Straight ones, right down the pipe. If he times a good shot on Charles, clips him coming in, Charles goes to his back, Beneil's not going to be scared to go down with him. He's going to go right down. If Charles is rocked, he's going to be looking for submissions. And I just have a much easier time picturing Beneil connecting when Charles is trying to pressure than Charles overwhelming him. I do, and I wish I didn't, but I just do. With all this being said, I want to make it very clear. You cannot make mistakes with Charles Oliveira. You just can't do it. You make a mistake, you leave a limb out there, he's gonna take it home. He has an entire collection on his wall of limbs that he has taken home with him. You can't do it. Mix in all this danger with someone who goes for broke when he fights. He will go at you, and he's not stopping until either you're done or he's done. Anything can happen. I can see him connecting with a shot, locking up a guillotine standing, locking up a Darce standing, taking you down, looking for whatever submission's there while he has you hurt. That can definitely happen. You cannot count this guy out ever. But if you just take skill for skill, all their accolades, everything they bring to the Octagon, Beneil Dariush is more solid. He's more well-rounded. He plays it safer, and I think in this matchup, it's going to benefit him, and he's going to beat Charles Oliveira. And that's just the truth.